Story 1. I live in Los Angeles, so I have routine access to Universal Studios, Disneyland, Six Flags, and Knott's Berry Farm. I will never go to a theme park in the summer. It's 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Kids aren't in school, so it gets crowded. You stand in the sun for hours for a 30-second ride. My dad is coming this weekend and wanted to go to Disneyland. I flat out refused. We'll go in November. Story 2. Cave crawling. I have participated in walking cave tours since the story I'm going to tell with no problem. What I am referring to is lying on my stomach and sliding through gaps in caves that look too small for a house cat to slip through. The experience that made me reconsider caving as a hobby was a professional cave club tour in a private cave they helped map. I felt comfortable with the two leaders despite some minor claustrophobia because they were highly recommended by the club. I had occasional pangs of fear, but the leaders were so reassuring that they enhanced the experience rather than detracted from it. We were probably a quarter-mile of crawling, with no place to fully get on our hands and knees, let alone stand and stretch. One group leader was in front and one in back to ensure our group was sandwiched between experienced individuals. Anyway, the leader was in front of me, two of my group were behind me, followed by the second leader. The person behind me got legitimately stuck and started grabbing and scratching at my legs and feet, which sent me into a full-blown panic. The third person got kicked in the nose and lip, which upset him and made him want to leave, but this was literally a perfect human-sized tunnel, so no one could turn around. Plus, the second leader was behind him, blocking him in, causing him to panic as well. After about 10 minutes of yelling and kicking at each other, the leaders managed to get us to quiet down enough to make a plan. I crawled ahead another 200 feet or so with the first leader to a wider gap where we could both get on our hands and knees and turn around. 10 minutes earlier, this big gap would have been a godsend. In that moment, though, I was so panicked it didn't matter. I might as well have been buried alive. The leader left me and crawled back to help pull the stuck person through. But he couldn't because he was just too big. The two people in the back had to crawl all the way out, sliding backwards since they couldn't turn around headfirst, and then the second leader crawled all the way back to pull the stuck person out. Obviously, I immediately agreed to leave when I was told the individuals were pulling out and silently cried all the way back. I have never been so genuinely terrified in my life. It is an indescribable feeling. Imagine every drop of adrenaline your body can produce being pumped through you, but not being able to crawl more than 4 or 5 feet per minute. Soaking wet, covered in muddy water, freezing cold yet sweating so heavily that it burns your eyes, but your arms are stretched so far forward that you can only use your dirty fingertips to swipe it away. It felt like one of those nightmares where you're trying to run and scream, but your legs don't work, and your call for help comes out silent. I'm glad I did something that scared me that deeply, though I'm not sure why. It was just a little too close to a real disaster for me. I would rather base jump in a wingsuit before I cave crawl like that again. Story 3. Intentionally acting foolish and immature was a habit rooted in deep insecurities, which I still have. However, I am now trying to behave my age and find genuine friends. For the first time in years, I have a real group of friends, and it feels wonderful. Story 4. I have smoked crack exactly one time, and I will never do it again. I am not trying to glamorize it. I know myself well enough that if I ever touched it again, it would be very hard to stop. Story 5. I will never trust a car seller at their word again, regardless of whether they are someone I know. Years ago, I was disappointed by an acquaintance selling a Jeep. I will also never buy a Jeep again. Story 6. Never again will I attempt to cook a gourmet meal while trying to entertain guests and keep my cat from jumping on the kitchen counter. It was a chaotic disaster that ended with burnt food, a stressed chef, and one mischievous cat who got a taste of marinara sauce and decided to redecorate the living room. Story 7. Giant swing. One I went on was over 200 feet high when we pulled the quick release to drop. Since I love roller coasters and thrill rides, I thought I would enjoy it. I did not like free-falling while parallel to the ground at all. It was the only time I let out a blood-curdling scream of pure terror. Story 8. Hostels are great as affordable options for young people. I enjoyed my experiences in them, but I am now happy to close that chapter of my life. Increased privacy, cleanliness, and comfort are much more valuable to me now, and fortunately, I can afford them. Story 9. I will never have another wedding in my life. If my husband and I divorced, I am positive I would stay single. I do not expect to divorce him, but if I did, I do not want to try it again. One and done. If it does not work with him, I will not bother trying again. Story 10. Swim in the Dead Sea. Don't do it. It's not worth the risk of excessive salt in any openings in your body. If you scratch your arm too hard, it will hurt from the salt. If you blink at the moisture in the air, you will feel the salt. If you are unprotected, you can only imagine the discomfort. Once your tender bodily areas start burning from the salt, you will begin thrashing around in pain, splashing water everywhere, which may affect even more sensitive areas. By the time you make it back to shore, everything will feel like it's on fire, and it will take a long time to wash all that salt out. The Dead Sea, not even once. Story 11. My brother refused to slow down. My ankles, knees, hips, and back were so sore from all the bouncing that when we stopped at a beach, I couldn't walk. The jet ski was extremely bouncy, and we hit a particularly bad patch of water. We jumped and slammed back down, and my head flew forward, hitting his back. I felt my brain rattle. 2 weeks later, I was diagnosed with post-concussion syndrome after experiencing nonstop migraines, vomiting, extreme lethargy, and what I can only describe as dissociation. Story 12. Dating a woman who says she loves you 4 days into the relationship can be a warning sign. Anyone reading this should consider it carefully. The only outcome of a relationship like that is trouble. Story 13. I gave it many tries and tried everything every smoker suggested to improve the experience. I experimented with extremely low dosages, different methods of smoking, and various strains. Unfortunately, it just does not work for me, which is disappointing because it seems truly enjoyable. However, something about my brain chemistry does not align with it. Story 14. Bungee jumping was on my bucket list, so I did it and hated every second of the experience. Skydiving was fun and oddly not scary for me, yet bungee jumping absolutely terrified me when I arrived to do it. Story 15. Accidentally eat poorly cooked chicken teriyaki in an unfamiliar city far from home the night before an early flight. Story 16. Attend a massive event. I was at Obama's inauguration in 2008. I attended college nearby and thought it would be cool to be a part of it. It was freezing cold, and many people weren't prepared for that. But I wasn't ready for the realities of 2.5 million people descending on a city with a population of 600,000. There was no food, no water, no restrooms, no shelter, and no room to move at all. There was nowhere to sit down after hours of standing and walking. Trash was everywhere, and subway stations were a claustrophobic's nightmare. People were fainting from dehydration. I ended up walking over 4 miles across the Potomac River to Virginia to catch a train home. Turned out to be an exhausting 12-hour day. It's cool to say I was there, but I'll never put myself in a crowd that size again. Story 17. Climb Notre Dame. That staircase keeps getting smaller as you go up. It feels like something out of Alice in Wonderland. Story 18. Get into a committed relationship. I am married, but if my marriage were to end for any reason, I would not seek out commitment again. Story 19. Cliff jumping caused me testicle and perineum pain for days, and yes, I tried to close my legs and clench my butt. One experience with edibles was enough for me. Long crowded concerts were challenging, not because I didn't enjoy them, but because I had an urgent need to use the restroom in the middle of one. No thanks. Story 20. Getting pregnant. Labor isn't so bad. I can manage that. It's the 9 months before and the 4 years after that I wouldn't do again for love or money. Story 21. Vacations in public places. I'm tired of overcrowded tourist spots. It feels like a waste of money to travel for relaxation, only to contend with crowds, loud children, and traffic. Everything I can experience for free at home. From now on, I will choose remote locations, cabins in the woods, or staycations. Story 22. Mardi Gras and the Kentucky Derby are experiences everyone should try at least once. However, if you participate in them more than once, you might want to reflect on your choices. Story 23. Attempting to catch escaping goslings. They have a lovely nest in a large pen with their mother, but so far they have escaped and gotten stuck elsewhere 4 times today, and it's only 1 p.m. Every rescue poses a genuine risk of injury from the mother, who, despite me returning her babies each time and feeding and watering the family, still tries to attack me for helping. Geese are quite a challenge. Story 24. Get a puppy. I love this little dog, but I'm not doing this again. I'll adopt a 7-year-old lazy mixed breed. Story 25. LSD was the best experience I've ever had. Once was enough for me. I don't understand how people can use it around those they don't know. I am glad I stayed home when I tried it. If anyone decides to use it for the first time, do not look in the mirror. Story 26. Being a bridesmaid was a nice experience, but I had known the woman for less than a year. It involved too much drama for my liking. Never again. Story 27. Being caring towards everyone is important. I was a huge people pleaser growing up and allowed those who were inconsiderate to take advantage of me. I learned my lesson. Many people will betray you without hesitation. It doesn't matter if it's a serious situation. They often do not care. This is not a fairy tale where the person you help becomes your friend. If I am fooled once, the shame is on you. I will focus on helping decent individuals and those I am close to. Story 28. Rock climbing. I tried it a couple of times just to say I did it. I'm still not comfortable with heights, and it's not for me. Story 29. Go to Las Vegas. The contrast between the bright lights and the homeless begging was unsettling. Additionally, it is too hot there for me. Story 30. Drink and drive. I never hurt anyone, but there is a clear distinction between the level of care a sober person has versus a non-sober person. 2 of my cars were totaled because of it nearly in the exact same way. I was never belligerent, but I was intoxicated enough to be easily distracted by music, my phone, or pretty colors passing by. I am thankful I never hit anyone, and I am done being reckless. Now I stay home, play Gran Turismo 7 in virtual reality, and enjoy myself. Story 31. Outdoor music festivals where you can camp are a unique experience. My husband and I attended Sweetwater in Atlanta 2 years ago, when it was still enjoyable, and it set a high bar for other festivals. We were able to enjoy music all day long, then return to our hotel to shower and get a good night's sleep at the end of the day. I didn't realize how much I had changed until I promised myself never to sleep on the ground in a muddy tent again. Story 32. Buy a used BMW. I can't afford to keep it running. I've calculated that it has cost me just under 50 cents per mile in repairs alone. Story 33. Get drunk on tequila without sobering up before falling asleep. I don't know what it is about alcohol in general, especially tequila, but my body can't process it. I was asleep, in and out, with a fever. It felt like my intestines were in a vacuum-sealed bag inside me. I was shaking, and my skin was red. Another time, I woke up still drunk and then threw everything up. Vodka wouldn't do this to me. Usually. Story 34. I wouldn't exactly call it a bucket list item, but a few months ago I had a Carolina Reaper burger. I had to sign a waiver to purchase it. Came with gloves. I'm sure you can see where this is going. I will say that the experience of eating the burger itself was pretty good. I enjoyed the taste, but it was by far the hottest thing I have ever eaten. The stomach cramps started about 20 minutes after I finished and didn't stop for about 30 hours. No need to call me foolish or ask me what I was thinking. I doubt you could say anything to me that is worse than what my family said over the next week. I can still eat really hot food, but the craving isn't there anymore. Story 35. Go golfing with my father-in-law. I hadn't picked up a club outside of a mini golf course in 20 years, and I found out the hard way that he's extremely competitive. It made for a truly miserable experience. Story 36. I will never go on a cruise again. I do not care if it is a free trip around the world or a 4-day getaway. Never again. Story 37. Many years ago, I went to a place that sells Christmas trees. It's like a tourist trap where they have bonfires, $9 hot apple cider, and activities for kids. I went there with an ex twice, and both times ended in a fight. I loathe this place, not because of her, but because every time it rained, I had to be the one to cut down a tree with a dull saw that had been in someone's garage for the last 20 years. I would get soaked struggling to cut down a $90 spruce that would eventually die in someone's living room. Now, I am with a lovely person who has kids, and she pulled a prank on me about going there. I kind of had a meltdown. I hate Christmas. Story 38. The exhaustion and weakness during chemotherapy mostly faded over time. The radiation for cancer on my tongue permanently destroyed much of my beard. Radiation is also on my anti-bucket list. Sometime after retirement, I developed gout, which limits my diet and alcohol intake. I do not recommend gout attacks. Story 39. I have been sober for 6 years, and if I were to drink alcohol, it would ruin my life. That statement is not an exaggeration. It is the truth. One drink is too many, and 1,000 drinks is not enough. Story 40. I would rather endure great discomfort than get married again. I refuse to be destroyed and lose everything once more. Story 41. Buy a place with a homeowners association. If I do that again, someone kick me hard. It wouldn't be so bad if they weren't so difficult. Story 42. Consider entering a committed relationship with a woman I have only spoken to through online messages. I foolishly believed that could work out many years ago, but it ended badly for me. She was apparently married and did not feel the need to inform me. Story 43. Roller skating. I tried it once when I was 12, fell, and never wanted to do it again. I simply don't have the balance. Story 44. I attended an Adele concert. Her singing is exceptional, but it sounded exactly like her recorded songs, so I wonder why it was necessary. Story 45. Boat cruise. A paint-by-numbers vacation on a hurried schedule in a tacky floating dorm where everything costs extra. Story 46. Buying a house without an inspection by each trade can be risky. Home inspectors often lack the necessary expertise, and there can be concerns about their relationships with realtors. A 55-year-old cast iron pipe can deteriorate significantly, and missing rebar in a concrete slab can lead to serious structural issues. Story 47. I will not go to a dance club again. I went a few times when I was younger. It was enjoyable at the time, but it's not a place I would want to visit today. Story 48. Self-harming. I didn't think I would make it this far, and now I have many scars that I wish I didn't. Story 49. Getting hit by a van head-on is definitely high on my no-bucket list. I drive a 1-ton truck now. The fuel cost is low compared to the medical bills and the experience of nearly dying twice. Story 50. I have never been skydiving, but I really wanted to go at least once in my life, like a bucket list item. However, my brother fell over 900 feet and slammed into the ground due to a parachute malfunction. I no longer want to try skydiving. Story 51. Though I've experienced Las Vegas 3 times, I won't be going back if I can help it. I've explored it in 3 different ways: the Strip, Fremont, and off the Strip. It's just not a fun place for me. I never win money, and everything is expensive. If you go during the off-season, the individuals in the circles on Fremont are often homeless people with signs. I don't think I do well in Sin City. Story 52. Undergo another craniotomy. It is not worth the risk of what I might lose, and I do not care that it could be fatal if I do not proceed. Death is preferable to what I faced that day. Story 53. I have a list of things I have no interest in doing, and quite a few of them are appearing in these answers, such as India and skydiving. My answer: I got scuba certified and never went again. My dive buddy was the wife of my husband's coworker, but we didn't know each other well. 25 years later, we are still friends, so that's a win. Story 54. Dating or getting married again. I have more important things to worry about. Additionally, I simply do not want to. Story 55. Spelunking. In college, my friends and I explored a nearby cave. We had to squeeze over a boulder and contort our bodies to enter through a small opening, then descend into the cave. We reached a fairly large room and took a break. There was a path to explore further, but I decided to wait for them to return. They ventured on with their flashlights, while I remained in complete darkness. I don't know how long I waited, but when I started to hear their voices and see glimmers of light returning, I felt a great sense of relief. When we finally exited the cave, we were all muddy and sweaty, and I knew I would never do anything like that again. Story 56. A cruise offers average to below average food and watered-down drinks. The ship feels claustrophobic, contributing to an ecological nightmare. You are crammed into a vessel with hundreds, if not thousands, of other people. The excursions are stressful and suboptimal. Overall, it was an expensive experience that I have no desire to repeat. Story 57. Never again will I date someone with narcissistic personality traits or a cluster B personality disorder. You cannot help them. The chronic nature of the disorder makes them beyond repair, in my experience, no matter how much they work on their symptoms. A narcissist will always be a narcissist. Story 58. Skydiving caused me to pass out for a few seconds mid-air. Of course, I decided to bungee jump a few years later, but never again. Also, I ran 2 marathons. What was the point? I'm an idiot. Story 59. Getting a free experience in exchange for attending a timeshare presentation. 1 day of an inexpensive vacation and part of 1 day of a ruined vacation. Those sales tactics infuriate me, and it feels like a prison while you are on vacation. Never again. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.